You shouldn't have come, he says, but his hand is still wrapped around my wrist like letting go isn't even an option. And the moment the doors slam behind us, the music from the ballroom dulls into a distant echo, like the world just got cut in half, and we're standing in the wrong side of it, breathing too loud, too fast, too close. I try to pull back, but Lucas doesn't budge, not even an inch, his suit still perfectly pressed, tie slightly crooked now, like something in him already broke. Before I even walked in, and I hate that I noticed that. I hate that I notice anything about him at all, because I told myself I was over this, over him, over the way my chest tightens just being this close. Let go. I manage, but it comes out weaker than I want. Thinner, like it doesn't belong to me. His eyes flicker over my face, searching, sharp, like he's trying to find something I forgot to hide. And for a second neither of us moves, not really, just breathing in the same stolen air. Between us, his thumb shifts slightly against my pulse. And it's such a small thing, barely anything. But it sends a jolt straight through me, like my body remembers him even if my mind keeps trying to rewrite the story. You walked in there like it meant nothing, he says quietly, but there's something under it, something tight and unfinished, like I meant nothing. I let out a short laugh that doesn't sound like me at all. You were about to get married, Lucas, I say, and the word married feels heavy in my mouth, like I borrowed it from someone else's life. What exactly did you expect? His jaw tightens, just for a second, but I see it. I always see it, that tiny crack in his control, and suddenly I remember too much, the late nights, the arguments that never really ended, the silence that hurt more than anything we actually said, the way he used to look at me like I was the only thing keeping him grounded, and then the way he stopped, like something in him just shut off. I swallow hard, trying to push it down, trying to stay in the present, in this hallway, in this moment that I shouldn't even be part of. I expected you not to come back, he says, and his voice drops lower, rougher, like it's dragged over something sharp. Not like this. I shake my head, finally yanking my hand free, stepping back like distance might fix whatever just snapped inside me. I didn't come back for you. I lie, too fast, too clean, and he knows it. I can see it in the way his eyes darken just slightly, not angry, not exactly, just certain, like he's already decided how this ends, like he already knows something I don't, or something I'm trying not to admit. Then why are you shaking? He asks, and I freeze, because I didn't even realize I was, my fingers curling slightly at my sides, betraying me, giving me away in the smallest, most humiliating way. The silence stretches between us, thin and fragile, and then he steps closer again, slow this time, deliberate, like he's giving me a chance to run, but also daring me to stay. His voice barely above a whisper now, close enough that I feel it before I fully hear it. Say it, he murmurs, say you don't feel anything when you look at me. And I open my mouth, ready to say it, ready to end this, ready to prove I'm not the same person who walked away 2 years ago. But nothing comes out, not a single word, just the sound of my own breath catching, and the quiet, terrible realization that maybe I never left at all. The silence does not break, it tightens, pulling every breath thinner until I feel like if I say the wrong thing, even something small, it will snap completely, and Lucas is still standing there, too close, too steady, watching me like he has all the time in the world while mine is slipping through my fingers 1 second at a time. You cannot say it, he murmurs, not mocking, not cruel, just certain. And that certainty hits harder than anything else, because he used to look at me like that, like I was something he believed in without question, and I hate that part of me still reacts to it, still leans toward it. Even now, especially now, this does not change anything. I force out, my voice steadier this time, even if my chest is not. You are getting married, Lucas, whatever this is, whatever you think. It is over. I take another step back, putting space between us, needing something to remind me that this is real, that I am not back in those old moments where everything felt inevitable, like we were always going to end up in the same place no matter how hard we try to leave. But he follows, not fast, not aggressive, just one step, then another, closing the distance like it does not matter how far I go. He will always be right there. Do you really believe that? He asks, and his voice is quieter now, lower, like it belongs to a different version of him, one I remember too well. the one that only showed up when everything else fell away, because I tried. He continues, and that stops me. Not his movement, not his proximity, but his words. I tried to let it be over, he says, almost to himself, like admitting it costs him something. I did everything right. I showed up. I said the things I was supposed to say. I stood there in front of everyone ready to promise a life that made sense. His gaze flickers toward the ballroom doors for just a second before snapping back to me. Sharper now. And then you walked in. The way he says it makes it sound like something inevitable, something catastrophic and unavoidable all at once, and I feel it again. That pull, that dangerous, familiar gravity that always existed between us, the one I spent 2 years trying to escape. I did not plan this. I say quickly, because I need to say something, anything. That puts distance between his version of events and mine. I was invited. I thought I could handle it. I thought I was fine. The last part comes out quieter, less convincing, and he notices. Of course he does. Lucas always notices the things I try to hide. You are not fine, he says simply, and there is no judgment in it, just fact, just observation, and somehow that makes it worse. And neither am I, he adds. And that lands somewhere deep, somewhere I have been carefully avoiding, because if he is not fine, then what does that mean for everything I told myself? For the version of him I created in my head that moved on cleanly, that left me behind without looking back, then go back in there. I say, even though the words feel wrong as soon as they leave my mouth. Finish it. Marry her. Live your perfect life. I gesture vaguely toward the doors, toward the music that is still faintly playing, like the world is continuing without us. That is what you wanted? Lucas's expression shifts, something small but undeniable, like a crack forming in glass. No, he says, and it is quiet. But it is absolute. That is what I thought I had to want. He takes another step closer, and this time I do not move back. I cannot. Like something inside me is rooted in place, holding me there despite every instinct telling me to run. There is a difference, he continues, his eyes locked on mine, steady, unflinching. And you know it. I shake my head slightly, more out of habit than belief, because I do know it. I always did. I just chose to ignore it, chose the version of the story that hurt less, that made it easier to leave. You do not get to decide that now, I say, but it sounds weaker than I want, thinner, like it is already unraveling. You lost that right when I walked away. Lucas exhales slowly, like he has been holding something in for too long, and when he speaks again, his voice is softer, but somehow heavier, like it carries more weight than before. You walked away, he repeats, not accusing, just stating it. But you never actually left, not really. His hand lifts slightly, hesitates, then drops again like he is choosing not to cross a line he easily could, and that restraint, that control, feels more dangerous than anything else. So I am asking you again, he says, and the space between us feels charged now, alive with everything we are not saying. Say it. His gaze does not waver, not even for a second. Say you do not feel anything, and I will walk back in there and finish this. My heart stutters, because I know he means it. I know he will do exactly that if I say the words, if I give him the excuse he needs. And suddenly this is not just about me, or him, or the past we cannot seem to let go of. It is about what happens next, what we choose in this moment, what we are willing to lose or hold on to. And I realize, with a clarity that feels almost terrifying, that I am not the only one standing on the edge of something that could change everything. And the worst part is, I still cannot speak. The words sit between us, heavy, waiting, and I can feel the exact second everything shifts, not outside in the ballroom, where music still hums and people are probably whispering, not in the ceremony we just walked away from, but here, in the space between his question and my silence, where the answer matters more than anything either of us has said in years. My throat tightens, my chest rising too fast, too shallow, like my body already knows what I am about to admit, even if I am still trying to fight it. The sound barely makes it out before it catches, and Lucas does not interrupt, does not push. He just watches, steady and unrelenting, like he is giving me the choice while knowing exactly which one I will make. And that thought alone makes something twist painfully inside me, because I do not want him to know me this well anymore. I do not want to be predictable to him, to anyone. Especially not after everything that happened. You are asking the wrong question, I say. Finally, the words coming out uneven but real. It does not matter what I feel. His brow furrows slightly, not in confusion, but in something closer to frustration, like I am trying to dodge something he is not going to let me avoid. It matters, he says immediately, quiet but firm, and the certainty in his voice hits harder than if he had raised it. It has always mattered. I shake my head, taking a step to the side this time, not back, just enough to break the straight line between us. Enough to breathe without feeling like I am standing right at the edge of something I cannot come back from. No, it mattered before. I correct, my voice steadier now, even as my hands curl slightly at my sides. Before everything fell apart, before we stopped choosing each other. The memory hits before I can stop it, sharp and vivid. The last night we spoke without arguing. The way the silence after felt louder than anything we ever said. The distance that grew even when we were standing in the same room, and I forced myself to stay present, here, now, where the choices are different but the stakes feel exactly the same. You made your decision. I continue, nodding toward the ballroom doors. You built something else, a different life, and my voice softens for just a second before I catch it. I respected that. Lucas lets out a quiet breath, not quite a laugh, not quite disbelief, something in between. You think this is about respect, he asks, and there is that crack again, that fracture in his composure that only shows when he is close to losing control, not in a loud way, but in a way that feels more dangerous because of how contained it is. I thought it was the only way to move forward. I answer, and this time it is not a lie, not entirely. It is just incomplete, missing the part where moving forward felt like leaving something essential behind, something I never really replaced. Then why are you still here? He asks, and the question lands directly. No room to twist it, no room to hide behind something easier. And I realize that is what this has been from the start. Not just a confrontation, not just a moment of unresolved tension, but a reckoning. One I have been avoiding for 2 years by pretending distance was the same as closure. Because I thought I could prove something. I admit, the truth slipping out before I can reshape it. I thought if I came here and it did not affect me, then it meant I was finally over it. Over you. The last word feels heavier than the rest, like it carries everything I have been trying not to say since I walked through those doors. Lucas studies me for a long second, his gaze softer now, but no less intense, like he is seeing past the surface, past the defenses I keep trying to rebuild, and, he asks quietly, and I let out a slow breath, my shoulders dropping just slightly as the weight of pretending starts to fade, replaced by something more honest, more uncertain, and I was wrong, I say, and the admission feels both terrifying and relieving all at once, like stepping into cold water and realizing I can still breathe. The silence returns, but it is different. Now, not as fragile, not as sharp, just full of everything we have not resolved, everything we still might. And Lucas takes one small step closer again, not closing the distance completely this time, just enough to make it clear he is still here, still choosing this moment. Then do not lie to me, he says, his voice low, steady, almost gentle in a way that makes my chest ache. Do not tell me this does not matter when you are standing right in front of me proving that it does. His words settle into something deeper than the argument, something quieter but more powerful. And for the first time since he pulled me out of that room, I am not thinking about leaving. Not immediately, not instinctively. I am just standing here, facing him, facing us, and realizing that whatever comes next is not something I can pretend my way out of anymore. For a moment, neither of us speaks, and the quiet stretches in a way that feels almost fragile, like it could collapse under the weight of a single wrong word. And I realize that this is the closest we have been to honesty in a long time. Maybe ever. Not the kind that comes out in arguments or late-night confessions, but the kind that sits still and refuses to be ignored. And it terrifies me more than anything else. Because honesty means there is nowhere left to hide. Not behind distance. Not behind time. Not behind the version of the story I have been telling myself just to get through the past 2 years. Lucas shifts slightly, not stepping closer this time. Just enough movement to remind me that he is still right here, still waiting. And that waiting feels deliberate, controlled, like he is giving me space while making it clear he is not going anywhere. You always do this, he says quietly, and I blink, caught off guard by the softness in his tone, not accusing, not sharp, just familiar. Do what? I ask, even though part of me already knows, already feels the answer settling somewhere uncomfortable. You turn everything into something easier to walk away from, he says, his gaze steady. You make it smaller, simpler, something you can manage, and then you leave before it gets too complicated to ignore. I let out a short breath, something between a laugh and a protest. That is not fair, I reply, but it sounds weaker than I want. Thinner, because there is truth in what he is saying, truth I do not want to look at too closely. No, he agrees, a faint, almost humorless smile touching his lips. It is not, but that does not make it wrong. The words land heavier than I expect, settling into the space between us. And for a second, I do not know how to respond, because arguing would be easier, pushing back would give me something to hold on to. But this quiet recognition, leaves me with nothing but the truth, and the truth is messy, complicated, impossible to neatly step away from. I glance toward the ballroom doors without thinking, the faint sound of music still filtering through, a reminder that there is a whole room full of people waiting, expecting something, someone, and that someone is not me, not anymore. You should go back, I say again, but this time it is softer, less forceful. Like I am not trying to convince him as much as I am trying to remind myself what makes sense, what should happen. They are waiting for you. Lucas follows my gaze for a brief second, then looks back at me, his expression unreadable. They have been waiting for me my whole life, he says, and there is something in that sentence that feels bigger than just this moment, something tied to expectations, to roles he has been playing long before today. That does not mean it is where I am supposed to be. I shake my head slightly, the contradiction of it all making my thoughts feel tangled. Then why did you come this far? I ask, because that is the part one cannot reconcile, the part that does not fit with everything he is saying now. Why stand up there? Why say yes to all of this if you knew it was not what you wanted? Lucas exhales slowly, his shoulders dropping just a fraction, like the question takes something out of him. Because it was easier than choosing something uncertain, he admits, and the honesty in his voice catches me off guard. Because I thought if I built something stable, something predictable, it would eventually feel right. His eyes flicker back to mine, sharper now, more focused, but it never did. The words hang there, simple but heavy, and I feel something shift again, not just in him, but in me, because I understand that, more than I want to admit, the idea of choosing something safe, something that makes sense on paper even if it does not feel right. And then you showed up, he adds, quieter now, and there is no accusation in it, just fact, just the reality of how fragile that carefully built life really was. And everything I was trying to ignore stopped being quiet. I swallow, the weight of that settling into my chest, because I did not plan this. I did not mean to disrupt anything. But standing here now, I cannot pretend I am not part of it, that my presence does not matter, that it does not change things. You are asking me to choose, I say slowly, the realization forming as I speak. You are asking me to stand here and decide something that affects more than just us. Lucas does not deny it, does not soften it, he just nods. Slightly, his gaze never leaving mine. I am asking you to be honest. He corrects, and somehow that feels even heavier, even harder, because honesty is not simple, not when it comes with consequences, not when it means admitting things I have been trying to bury. And if I am? I ask, my voice quieter now, almost careful. If I say that I still feel something, that I never really stopped, what then? The question hangs between us, charged, uncertain. And for the first time since this started, Lucas hesitates, just for a second, like even he does not have a perfect answer, like this is not as controlled as he has been pretending. Then we figure out what to do with that, he says finally. And there is no certainty in it this time, no clear path. Just possibility, raw, and unsteady. And that might be the most terrifying part of all, because it means this is not about going back to what we were, it is about deciding what we could be, and I do not know if I am ready for that. I do not know if either of us is. But as I stand here, looking at him, feeling everything I tried to leave behind rise back to the surface, I realize that walking away might not be as simple as I thought it would be. The possibility hangs there, quiet but undeniable. And for a second I cannot breathe properly, Like the air in this hallway has shifted into something heavier, something that demands more from me than I am ready to give. My fingers twitch at my sides, restless, uncertain, because this is no longer about what already happened. It is about what comes next, and that feels infinitely more dangerous. You make it sound simple, I say finally, my voice low, careful, like I am testing the words before. I let them fully exist, like we can just decide to pick this back up and everything will fall into place. Lucas's expression softens slightly, not in agreement, but in understanding, like he knows exactly why I am pushing back. I did not say it would be simple, he replies, and there is a quiet honesty in that makes it harder to argue, harder to dismiss. I said it is real. I look away for a second, my gaze drifting to the polished floor beneath us, the reflection of the lights above. Blurred and distorted, like everything else in this moment. Real is not always enough. I murmur, more to myself than to him, because I have learned that the hard way, learned that feeling something deeply does not guarantee it will survive everything else life throws at it. Lucas shifts again, just slightly, and I feel it before I see it. That subtle change in the space between us, like he is deciding something, like he is stepping closer to a line neither of us has fully crossed yet. It was not enough before, he says, picking up on my thought like he always does. But that does not mean it cannot be now. I let out a slow breath, shaking my head, because this is exactly how it used to be. The two of us circling the same argument from different angles, both of us convinced we are seeing something the other is missing. You are asking me to trust something that already broke once, I say, meeting his eyes again, because I need him to understand that part. I need him to see that. This is not just fear, it is memory, it is experience, it is everything that came after the last time. We stood this close and thought it would be enough. Lucas does not look away, does not flinch, he just takes that in, lets it settle, and for a moment I wonder if this is where he steps back, where he admits that maybe I am right. Maybe this is too much to try again, too complicated to fix, but instead he nods once, slow, deliberate. I know, he says, and there is something in his voice that feels different, steadier, like he is not trying to convince me by denying what happened, but by acknowledging it. I know it broke, and I know I was part of that. The admission lands quietly, but it carries weight, because Lucas has never been someone who says things lightly, never someone who offers words without meaning them. Then why now? I ask, the question coming out sharper than I intend, edged with something that feels dangerously close to vulnerability. Why today? Why this moment? Why pull me out of that room instead of letting everything go the way it was supposed to? Lucas exhales slowly, his gaze flickering for just a second, not away, but inward, like he is searching for the right way to say something that matters. Because I realized something standing up there, he says, his voice quieter now, more measured. I realized that I was about to build a life based on what made sense, not on what was true. He pauses, just long enough for the words to settle, to reach me fully. And I have already lived that version once. My chest tightens at that, because I know exactly what he means. Even if he does not say it directly, even if he leaves the rest unsaid, it is there, in the space between us, in the history we cannot erase. I do not want to do that again. He finishes, and there is no hesitation in it, no uncertainty, just clarity. And that clarity unsettles me more than anything else, because it leaves me with fewer excuses, fewer ways to step back without acknowledging what I am stepping away from. And what about her? I ask, the thought pressing forward now. Unavoidable, because this is not just about us. It never has been. What about the person you were about to marry, the life you were about to start, the promises you were ready to make? Lucas's jaw tightens slightly, not defensive, but serious, grounded in the reality of that question. She deserves the truth too, he says, and there is something resolute in that, something that tells me he has already thought about this, already considered the consequences beyond just this moment. She deserves someone who is fully there, not someone who is still looking over his shoulder at the past. His eyes return to mine, steady and unwavering. And right now, that is not me. The honesty of it hits me again, sharp and undeniable, and I feel something shift inside me. Not a resolution, not a decision, but a crack, a space opening where something new could exist if I let it, if I am willing to risk it. And that is the part that still scares me. The part that makes my instincts scream to step back, to choose the safer path, the one I already know. But as I stand here, looking at him, hearing the certainty in his voice, I realize that safe and right are not always the same thing, and maybe they never were. The realization does not come all at once. It settles slowly, like something sinking beneath the surface until it becomes impossible to ignore, and I can feel it in the way my chest tightens, not from panic this time, but from something heavier, something steadier, like the weight of a decision that has been waiting for me longer than I want to admit. Lucas is still watching me, not pushing, not interrupting, just there, present in a way that feels different from before, like he is not trying to control the outcome anymore, just waiting to see if I will meet him halfway. And that changes everything, because it means this is not just about him choosing, it is about me choosing too. You are asking me to risk everything again, I say quietly, my voice more honest now, stripped of the defenses I kept trying to hold on to. Not just what happened before, but what I have built since then. The life I managed to put back together after we ended. Lucas nods slightly, like he expected that. Like he understands exactly what I am weighing in this moment. I know, he says, and there is no attempt to minimize it, no attempt to make it sound easier than it is. And I am not asking you to pretend that part does not matter. I glance at him, surprised by that. By the way, he is not trying to dismiss my fears, not trying to rush me past them. Then what are you asking? I press, because if I am going to stand here and consider this, I need to understand what he actually wants from me, not just what he feels. Lucas exhales slowly, his shoulders easing just slightly, like he has been holding this in longer than I realized. I am asking you to stop pretending that what we had is something you can just file away and move on from, he says, his voice steady, grounded. I am asking you to look at me and admit that it is still here, that it still matters, and then decide what to do with that truth instead of running from it. The words land differently this time. Not like pressure, not like a demand, but like an invitation, and that makes it harder to reject, harder to dismiss, because he is not telling me what to choose. He is asking me to actually choose, and that is something I have been avoiding for a long time. I swallow, my thoughts racing through everything I tried to build after him, the routines, the quiet evenings, the version of myself that learned how to exist without constantly looking over my shoulder, without wondering what he was doing, who he was with, whether he ever thought about me the way I still thought about him when I could not sleep. It was not easy to get to a place where I could breathe again. I admit, my voice softer now, more vulnerable than I intended, where I did not feel like everything was unfinished, like I was waiting for something that was never going to happen. Lucas's expression shifts at that, something tightening in his gaze, like he hears the part one did not say out loud, the part where that something was always him. And you think this is going to make it easier? I add, a faint edge slipping into my tone, because I need him to understand that this is not just romantic tension or unresolved feelings. This is real. This is complicated. This is the kind of choice that changes things in ways you cannot undo. No, he answers immediately, and the certainty in his voice catches me off guard again. I think it is going to make it harder. He pauses, just long enough for that to settle, for me to really hear it. But I also think it is going to make it honest. I let out a slow breath, my gaze dropping for a second before lifting back to him, because that word, honest, it keeps coming back, keeps cutting through everything else I try to hold on to. And I am starting to realize that maybe that is what I have been missing. Not closure, not distance, but honesty, with him, with myself, with everything I never fully faced when I walked away. And if I choose wrong? I ask quietly, the question slipping out before I can stop it, because that is the part that scares me the most, not just choosing, but choosing something that might break all over again. Lucas's expression softens slightly, not in pity, not in reassurance, just in understanding. Then we deal with it, he says, and there is no promise in it, no guarantee, just reality, just the acceptance that things might not be perfect, that they might not even work out, but at least it will be our choice. This time, the words settle into something deep, something that resonates in a way I cannot ignore, because the last time we fell apart, it did not feel like a choice. It felt like something that happened to us, something we could not stop even if we tried. And maybe that is the difference now. Maybe that is what he is offering. Not certainty, not perfection, but the chance to actually choose each other knowing exactly what it costs. I look at him, really look at him this time, at the steadiness in his posture, the way his hands are relaxed at his sides instead of reaching for me, like he is giving me the space to decide without forcing the outcome. And I realize that this is not the same as before, not exactly, because he is not the same, and neither am I, and that thought alone shifts something inside me, not enough to make the decision for me, not yet, but enough to make me hesitate before walking away, enough to make me wonder what happens if I stay just a little longer. The moment stretches, longer than it should, long enough that I start to feel the weight of every second pressing in, long enough that the quiet between us begins to take on a different kind of tension, not sharp or fragile anymore, but dense, like something waiting to be decided whether I am ready or not. And Lucas does not move, does not rush me, but there is something in the way he stands there, steady and grounded, that makes it clear he is not stepping away from this, not unless I do first, and that realization lands somewhere deep, because it means the next move is mine, not his, not fate, not timing, but mine. You said we would figure it out? I say slowly, my voice careful, like I am stepping onto something uncertain, testing whether it will hold. But what does that actually look like? Lucas's gaze softens just slightly, not in relief, but in recognition, like this is the first time I am not trying to escape the question, the first time I am actually engaging with it. It looks like not pretending this never happened. He answers, and his voice is steady, even, like he has thought about this more than he is letting on. It looks like not going back into that room and acting like I can just finish something that already feels wrong. I glance toward the doors again, the music, still faint but persistent, like a reminder that time is moving whether we acknowledge it or not. And after that, I press, because stopping something is one thing, but starting something else is another entirely. After that, what happens to us? Lucas exhales slowly, and for the first time since this started, there is a hint of uncertainty in him, not enough to shake his confidence, but enough to make this feel real, not just a moment of intensity. After that, we take it one step at a time, he says, and there is no grand promise in it. No sweeping declaration, just something simple and honest. We talk, we figure out what still works, what does not, what we need to do differently if we are going to try again. The words settle into something quieter, something more grounded than the tension that brought us here, and that almost makes it harder, because it strips away the drama, the intensity, and leaves behind something more real, something that requires effort, patience, and the willingness to face things we did not handle well before. You make it sound like we can just fix it, I say, even though I know that is not what he is saying. Not really. Lucas shakes his head slightly. No, he replies. I am saying we can choose to try, knowing it might not work. There is a pause, brief but meaningful, but also knowing that walking away without trying again is something we might regret. Even more, the word regret lingers in the air, heavier than anything else he has said so far, and I feel it, not just as a concept, but as something familiar, something I have already been carrying without fully admitting it. The quiet moments when I wondered what would have happened if I stayed, if I fought harder, if I did not leave when things got difficult instead of working through them. You are asking me to trust you again, I say, and this time it is not an accusation, not even a protest, just a statement of fact. Lucas meets my gaze without hesitation. Yes, he says simply, and there is no attempt to soften it, no attempt to make it easier, just the truth, and somehow that makes it feel more real, more possible, even if it is still terrifying. I take a slow breath, feeling the weight of everything that led to this moment pressing in, the past we share, the distance we tried to create, the lives we started building apart from each other, all of it converging here, in this hallway, in this decision that does not have a clear right answer. And what if I cannot? I ask quietly, because that is the part one have not fully faced yet, the possibility that even if I still feel something, even if I still care, I might not be able to take that step again. Lucas's expression shifts slightly, not in disappointment, not in frustration, just in understanding. Then you walk away, he says, and there is something steady in it, something that tells me he means it, that he will not chase me down this hallway, will not force me into something I am not ready for, but at least you will know you made that choice honestly, not out of fear. The words land differently than I expect, because they do not trap me, they do not corner me, they leave the door open, and that openness, that lack of pressure, makes it harder to run, harder to justify leaving without really considering what staying could mean. I look at him again. Really look this time. At the way he is giving me space instead of taking it. At the way he is standing here not as someone trying to control the outcome, but as someone willing to face whatever it becomes, and something inside me shifts again, not into certainty, not into a clear decision, but into something closer to willingness, the kind that does not erase the fear, but chooses to move forward despite it. And as the music from the ballroom swells faintly in the background, I realize that whatever happens next is not just about whether we can make this work. It is about whether I am ready to stop running from something that has never really let me go. The air between us shifts again, quieter now, but no less intense, like something has settled into place even if neither of us has fully named it yet. And I can feel the difference in my own breathing, slower, deeper, like I am no longer standing on the edge of leaving, but somewhere in between, suspended, deciding. Lucas does not move, but there is a subtle change in his posture, a slight easing of his shoulders, like he senses it too, like he knows I have not walked away yet, and that matters. More than anything I could have said, I run a hand through my hair, exhaling slowly as I try to sort through everything building inside me. Because this is no longer just about whether I feel something. That part is obvious now, undeniable. It is about whether I am willing to act on it, whether I am willing to accept what comes with that choice. If we do this, I begin, my voice quieter but steadier than before. It cannot be the same. Lucas nods immediately, not defensive, not resistant. Just in agreement, like he expected that condition, like he has already thought about it. It will not be, he says, simple and direct, and something about the way he says it, without hesitation, without trying to argue, makes it easier to continue. We cannot go back to how things were. I add, my gaze holding his, because I need him to understand that clearly. We cannot pretend that what happened did not change us. He takes a small breath, his eyes softening just slightly. I am not asking for that, he replies, and there is a quiet sincerity in it that makes my chest tighten. I am asking for something better than what we had before. The words catch me off guard, not because they are dramatic, but because they are not. Because they are grounded in something real, something that requires effort, growth, and the willingness to admit that what we had was not perfect, even if it meant everything at the time. I study him for a moment, searching for hesitation, for doubt, for anything that might suggest he is caught up in the intensity of this moment rather than thinking about what comes after, but I do not find it. What I see instead is something steadier, something more deliberate. And that makes this feel less like a reckless decision and more like a conscious one. And that is somehow even more overwhelming. You are really not going back in there. I say, not quite a question, more like a realization spoken out loud. Lucas's gaze flickers briefly toward the ballroom doors, then back to me, unwavering. No, he says, and there is no hesitation in it. No second guessing, just certainty. I am not. The finality of it settles into the space between us, and I feel the weight of what that means, not just for him, not just for the person waiting inside, but for me too, because if he is making that choice, then it forces me to confront my own, forces me to stop standing in the middle and pretending I can stay there indefinitely. You are changing everything, I say quietly, and I am not sure if I mean it as a warning or an acknowledgement. Lucas's expression does not shift, but there is something in his eyes that feels almost like relief, like he has already accepted that truth. It needed to change, he replies, and the simplicity of it makes something in my chest tighten, because part of me knows he is right. Part of me has always known that the way things ended between us was not the only way they could have gone, just the way they did at the time. I let out a slow breath, my gaze dropping for a second before lifting back to him, because I cannot avoid this anymore. Cannot stand here indefinitely without choosing something. If we try again, I say carefully, the words feeling heavier now, more real. It means facing everything we did not handle before. He nods, his expression serious but not deterred. I know, he says, and there is no hesitation in it, no attempt to soften the reality of that. It means we do not get to avoid the hard parts. I continue, pushing through the last of my resistance, Because if I am going to do this, I need to be honest about what it requires. It means we do not get to walk away when it gets complicated. Lucas's gaze holds mine, steady and unwavering. Then we do not walk away, he answers. And there is something in the way he says it, not like a promise he cannot break, but like a commitment he is choosing to make, fully aware of what it costs, and that matters. More than anything else, I feel something settle inside me then. Not fear exactly, not uncertainty, but something quieter, something closer to resolve, like a decision forming not all at once, but piece by piece. Until it becomes something I can no longer ignore, I take a small step forward, closing the distance just slightly, not enough to erase the space between us, but enough to show that I am not moving away, that I am still here, still considering this, still choosing to stay in this moment instead of escaping it. Lucas notices, of course he does, his eyes flickering briefly to the space between us before returning to my face. And there is something there, something unspoken but clear, like he understands what that small movement means, even if I have not said it out loud yet. The music from the ballroom swells faintly again, a reminder that time is still moving, that the world outside this hallway is still waiting. But for the first time since this started, it feels distant, less urgent, like the decision being made here matters more than anything happening out there. And as I stand in front of him, no longer trying to leave, no longer pretending I can simply walk away from this, I realize that the next words I say will not just end this moment, they will define what comes after. And that realization, instead of pushing me back, makes me take one more breath and stay exactly where I am. The moment does not break. It deepens, like everything we have been circling finally settles into something real, something that cannot be ignored or undone. And I can feel it in the way my chest steadies instead of tightening, in the way my thoughts stop scattering and begin to align into something clearer, something that feels less like fear and more like a decision waiting to be spoken. Lucas is still watching me, not with urgency, not with pressure, but with that same quiet intensity that has always made it impossible for me to pretend he does not matter. And for the first time since I walked into that ballroom, I stopped trying to resist that. I stopped trying to convince myself that this is something I can walk away from without consequence. Okay, I say, the word coming out softer than I expected, but it lands between us with more weight than anything else I have said so far. Lucas's expression shifts slightly, not into relief, not into triumph, but into something steadier. Something that feels like recognition, like he understands exactly what that word means even if I have not explained it yet. Okay, he repeats, his voice low, careful, like he is making sure he heard me correctly, like he does not want to assume something that might not be real. I take a slow breath, holding his gaze, because if I am going to say this, I need to mean it fully. I am not saying this is going to be easy. I continue, my voice steadier now, grounded in the decision forming beneath it, and I am not saying I am not still afraid of how this could end. His eyes do not leave mine, not even for a second, like he is taking in every word, every hesitation, every piece of truth I am offering. But I am saying I do not want to walk away again without knowing if we could have done it differently. The words settle into the space between us, and for a moment everything feels still, like the world outside this hallway has faded completely, leaving just this. Just us, just the choice being made in real time. Lucas exhales slowly, and there is something in that breath, something that feels like he has been holding it in longer than I realized, like this moment mattered to him more than he let on. Then we try, he says, and the simplicity of it is almost disarming. No grand declaration, no overwhelming promise, just a quiet agreement that carries more meaning than anything else. I nod slightly, the movement small but deliberate, because this is not about certainty. It is about willingness, about choosing to step forward even when the path is unclear. We try. I echo, and the words feel strange and familiar at the same time, like something I have been avoiding for so long is finally being acknowledged. But just as the moment begins to settle into something almost calm, almost certain, the sound of the ballroom doors opening cuts through the quiet, sharp and unexpected, and both of us turn instinctively toward it, the music growing louder. For a brief second before fading again as the door closes behind whoever stepped out. And then there is a pause, a shift in the air, like something else is about to change. Lucas. A voice calls from down the hallway, clear, composed, and unmistakably belonging to someone who has every right to be here. Someone who is not supposed to be standing on the other side of that door alone. I feel it before I fully process it. The tension snapping back into place, sharper now, more complicated. Because this is the part we have not faced yet, the part that exists outside of just the two of us. Lucas does not look away from me immediately, his gaze holding mine for one more second, like he is silently asking if I am still here, if I am still choosing this even with everything else about to collide with it. And I do not step back, I do not look away, I hold his gaze just as firmly, even as my pulse quickens again, even as the reality of what we are doing settles in more fully. We are not done, he says quietly, not to the voice down the hall, but to me. And there is something in the way he says it that makes it clear this is not just about this conversation, this moment, but everything that comes after, everything we just agreed to face together. And then he finally turns, his posture shifting slightly as he prepares to face whatever is coming next, and I realize, standing here just a step behind him, that choosing to stay was only the beginning. Because now we have to face the consequences of that choice, and there is no turning back from that. The sound of her heels against the polished floor is steady, controlled, each step measured like she is holding herself together through sheer will. And when she comes into view at the end of the hallway, everything shifts again, not just in the air, but in the reality of what we have done, what we are about to face. She stops a few feet away, her gaze moving from Lucas to me and then back again, sharp, observant, not confused but not entirely calm either, like she already understands that. Something has changed, something she cannot yet name but can feel just as clearly as we can. Everyone is waiting, she says, her voice composed. Even, but there is a tightness beneath it, something restrained, something carefully held back. Lucas does not respond immediately, and I can see the moment he gathers himself, not retreating, not stepping away from what we just said, but preparing to carry it into whatever comes next. I know, he replies finally, his voice steady, not defensive, not apologetic, just honest. And that honesty lands differently now, heavier, more deliberate, because it is no longer just between the two of us. She studies him for a long second, her expression unreadable, and then her eyes shift to me again, lingering just slightly longer this time, as if trying to place me, to understand why I am standing here instead of inside, instead of where I am supposed to be. And she asks, a single word, but it carries everything. The question, the expectation, the realization that something is not unfolding the way it was meant to. I feel the tension rise again, sharper now, not the quiet pull between Lucas and me, but something more external, more immediate. And for a brief second, I wonder if this is where I step back, where I remove myself from this situation before it becomes something I cannot control. But then Lucas moves, just slightly, not in front of me, not shielding, but closer, enough that the space between us feels intentional, chosen, and that small movement grounds me, reminds me of the decision I just made, the one I cannot undo just because it is getting harder. We need to talk, Lucas says, his tone calm but firm, and there is no hesitation in it. No attempt to soften the reality of what he is about to say. She lets out a slow breath, her shoulders straightening just a fraction, like she is bracing herself, like she already knows this is not going to be a simple conversation. Then talk, she replies, and there is a quiet strength in it that I cannot ignore, a composure that makes this feel even more real, more difficult, because she is not someone easy to dismiss, not someone who can be pushed aside without consequence. Lucas glances at me for just a second, not seeking permission, but acknowledging me, acknowledging that I am part of this now, that this is no longer something he is handling alone. And I hold his gaze, not stepping back, not looking away, even as my pulse quickens, even as the weight of this moment settles more fully into my chest. I cannot go back in there, he says, turning his attention back to her. And the words are simple, but they carry a finality that changes everything. Her expression shifts then, just slightly. The first real crack in her composure. Not dramatic, not explosive, just a quiet realization settling in. What do you mean? She asks. And there is something in her voice now. Something more personal, less controlled, like she is no longer just addressing a situation, but something that affects her directly. Something she cannot keep at a distance, Lucas does not hesitate, does not look away. I mean, I cannot do this, he says, and there is no ambiguity in it, no room for misunderstanding. Just the truth laid out plainly, and the silence that follows is heavier than anything else that has happened so far, because this is the moment where everything we have been circling becomes real, not just for us, but for her too. I feel it in the way the air seems to still, in the way even the distant music feels muted, like the world is holding its breath, waiting to see what happens next. Her gaze flickers to me again, sharper now, more focused, and I can see the question forming there, the realization connecting pieces that were not meant to fit together. Is this because of him? She asks, and the words are not accusing. Not yet, but they are direct, cutting straight to the center of something none of us can deny. My chest tightens at that, because this is the part we cannot soften, cannot explain away without confronting it fully. Lucas does not answer immediately, and in that brief pause, everything feels suspended, balanced on the edge of something irreversible. And then he speaks, his voice steady, unwavering. It is because I was not honest, he says, and the answer is not what she asked. Not exactly. But it is something deeper, something more difficult to argue with. Because it does not place blame, it does not deflect, it simply acknowledges the truth, and that truth changes everything. I stand there, just behind him, feeling the weight of it settle into something real and unavoidable, realizing that this is no longer just about what we chose in that quiet hallway. It is about how that choice unfolds in the world outside of it, how it affects everyone involved. And as I watch the moment stretch, waiting for her response, I understand that whatever happens next is not something we can control completely, only something we can face, together or not, depending on what comes after this. The silence that follows his words does not explode. It settles, heavy and precise, like something inevitable finally arriving. And she does not react the way I expect. There is no immediate anger, no raised voice, just a stillness that feels sharper than anything else. Her eyes remain on Lucas, searching, calculating, like she is replaying every moment leading up to this, fitting pieces together that suddenly make sense in a way they did not before. Not honest, she repeats slowly, and the calm in her tone makes my chest tighten more than if she had shouted, because calm means she is thinking, and thinking means she is seeing the truth more clearly than either of us can avoid. Lucas does not interrupt, does not try to redirect. He stands there and lets her process it, and that alone tells me how serious he is about this, how far he is willing to go without stepping back. So this was all what? She continues, her gaze flickering briefly to me again before returning to him, sharper now, more direct. Something you were going to go through with anyway, hoping the feeling would catch up later. There is no accusation in her words, not exactly, but there is something deeper, something more cutting because of how controlled it is, like she is not asking for answers. She is confirming what she already knows. Lucas exhales slowly, and I can see the weight of this moment settling into him as well, not regret exactly, but the understanding of what this costs. I thought I could make it work, he admits, his voice steady, grounded. I thought if I kept moving forward, everything else would fall into place. She lets out a small breath at that, almost a quiet laugh, but there is no humor in it, just a recognition that lands somewhere heavy between them. And now, she asks, and this time the question is softer, not weaker, just more personal, like she is no longer addressing a situation, but something that matters to her in a way that cannot be dismissed. Lucas does not hesitate. Now I know it will not, he says, and the certainty in his voice shifts something in the air again, making this feel final in a way it had not before. Her gaze drops for a brief second, not in defeat, but in thought, like she is giving herself a moment to absorb it fully before responding. And when she looks back up, there is a clarity there that was not present before, something resolved, something decided. Is it him? She asks again, but this time it is different, not searching, not uncertain, just direct, and I feel the question land in my chest, sharp and unavoidable, because this is the moment where everything becomes undeniable, where there is no room left to hide behind partial truths or careful wording. Lucas glances at me, just for a second, and in that glance there is no hesitation, no doubt, just acknowledgement, and then he looks back at her. He is part of it, he says, And the honesty of that is almost overwhelming, because he is not deflecting, not simplifying. He is naming it for what it is, and that matters. Even if it complicates everything else. Her gaze shifts to me again, slower this time, more deliberate, and I can feel the weight of it. The way she is seeing me now, not as a background presence, not as someone incidental, but as someone who changed the course of something she thought was certain. And for a brief moment I consider stepping forward, saying something, explaining, but there is nothing I can say that would make this easier, nothing that would undo what has already been set in motion. So I stay where I am, present but silent, allowing this to unfold the way it needs to. She studies me for a long second, then looks back at Lucas, her expression no longer guarded, no longer restrained, just clear. "You should have told me," she says, and there is no anger in it, just truth, just the simple statement of what should have happened before it reached this point. Lucas nods slightly, accepting that without argument, without defense, I should have. He agrees, and the weight of that admission settles between them, not as a conflict, but as a recognition of what cannot be changed. The silence returns again, but it feels different now, not tense, not uncertain, just resolved in a way that feels both heavy and inevitable. And then she takes a small step back, not retreating, not breaking, just creating space, like she is stepping out of something that no longer belongs to her. "Then go," she says quietly, and the words land with a finality that shifts everything once more. Lucas does not move immediately, not because he is hesitating, but because he understands what that means, what she is giving him in that moment, the space to choose without being pulled back by obligation or expectation. And I feel it too. The shift, the opening, the point where this stops being about what we are leaving behind and becomes about what we are stepping into. And as the silence stretches one more time, I realize that this is not the end of anything. It is the beginning of something else entirely. Something uncertain and untested, but real in a way neither of us can deny anymore. For a moment, no one moves, not him, not me, not even her. And it feels like time has slowed just enough for everything to settle into something undeniable, something final in its own quiet way. And I can see it in the way she stands there, composed but no longer holding on, like she has already stepped out of the future she thought she was walking into. And Lucas is still facing her, not rushing forward, not pulling away, just standing in the space between what was supposed to happen and what is happening now. And I realize that this is the part where everything could still fracture, where guilt or hesitation or doubt could pull him back into that room, into the version of his life that made sense to everyone else. But he does not move. He does not look back toward the doors, and that stillness says more than anything else he could have done. She watches him for a second longer, like she is giving him the chance to change his mind, like she is waiting for some sign that this is not as final as it feels. But when it does not come, she nods once, small and controlled, and steps aside just enough to clear the path between us and the exit at the end of the hallway. "Take care of it properly," she says, her voice steady, not cold, not warm, just clear. And there is something in that sentence that feels like closure, not just for her, but for the situation as a whole. Lucas inclines his head slightly, a quiet acknowledgement, not a promise, not an apology, just respect for what she is giving him in this moment. And then the silence stretches again, but this time it feels different, not heavy, not tense, just open, like something has been released. I feel it in my chest, the way the pressure shifts, the way the tightness that has been sitting there since I walked into this building begins to loosen, replaced by something unfamiliar, something lighter, but no less real. Lucas finally turns, not toward the ballroom, not toward the past, but toward me, and the look in his eyes is not the same as it was before. It is not just intensity or urgency. It is something steadier, something that feels like a decision fully made. And for a second we just look at each other. No words, no explanations, just the understanding that whatever happens next, it starts here, not in that room, not in what was expected of him, but here, in the choice we both just made. "Are you still here?" he asks quietly. And the question is simple, but it carries everything. Not just whether I am physically standing in front of him, but whether I am really staying. Whether I am ready to follow through on what I said, on what we agreed to face together. I take a breath, steadying myself, because this is the moment where I could still step back, still choose the easier path, the one that does not involve uncertainty or risk or the possibility of everything falling apart again. But as I look at him, at the way he is standing here without hesitation, without trying to pull me in or push me away, just waiting, I realize that I do not want the easier path. Not this time. I am still here. I answer, my voice quiet but certain, and something shifts in his expression, not relief exactly, but something close, something that settles into place now that it has been confirmed, and without another word, he steps past me, not leaving, but moving forward, toward the exit at the end of the hallway, and I hesitate for just a fraction of a second. The weight of everything we are leaving behind pressing in. The life he just stepped away from. The version of mine that felt safe and predictable. And then I follow, matching his pace, not rushing, not falling behind, just walking beside him. And the sound of our footsteps is the only thing filling the space now, steady and real, until we reach the doors at the end of the hall, the ones that lead outside, away from everything that was supposed to happen today. Lucas pauses with his hand on the handle, glancing at me one more time, not questioning, not doubting, just checking, and I nod slightly, a small confirmation that carries more weight than it should. And then he pushes the door open, the bright daylight spilling in, cutting through the controlled, quiet atmosphere of the hallway. And for a second it feels like stepping into something entirely new, something uncertain and unplanned, but real in a way that nothing inside that building was. And as we step out into it together, I realize that whatever comes next is not going to be easy, not going to be simple. But for the first time in a long time, it feels like something we are actually choosing, not something we are running from. The sunlight hits differently than I expect, brighter, sharper, like stepping into something that does not soften the truth the way the quiet hallway did. And for a second I have to blink against it, adjusting, grounding myself in the reality of where we are now, outside, away from the controlled environment of the ceremony, away from expectations that were neatly arranged and carefully followed. And Lucas stands beside me, not too close, not reaching, just there, and that distance feels intentional, respectful in a way that makes this moment feel more real than anything that came before it. I take a slow breath, letting the air fill my lungs fully for the first time since I arrived, and it feels different, not lighter exactly, but clearer, like something that was weighing me down has shifted into something I can finally face instead of avoid. So this is it, I say quietly, my voice steady but thoughtful, because there is no going back to what things were even an hour ago. Not for him, not for me. Lucas glances at me, his expression calm but attentive, like he is listening for more than just the words, like he understands that this is not a statement but the beginning of something else. This is where we start, he replies, and there is something grounded in the way he says it, not hopeful in a naive way, not overly certain, just real. Acknowledging both the possibility and the weight of what comes with it. I nod slightly, my gaze drifting for a moment to the street. Beyond the venue, cars passing, people moving, the world continuing as if nothing has changed, even though everything has. It does not feel like a clean beginning. I admit, because it is not. It is complicated and unfinished and tied to everything we just left behind. Lucas lets out a small breath beside me, not disagreeing, not correcting, just acknowledging it. It is not supposed to be clean, he says. It is supposed to be honest. And that word settles into me again, the same way it has throughout all of this, cutting through the noise, through the fear, through the instinct to simplify something that has never been simple. I look at him then, really look, taking in the details I used to know without thinking. The way his expression shifts when he is focused, the quiet steadiness in the way he holds himself. And I realize that while so much feels familiar, there is something different too, something that comes from everything we went through, everything we learned apart from each other. And that difference is what makes this feel possible in a way it did not before. We are going to have to talk about everything. I say, the reality of it settling in more fully now. Not just what happened today, but everything that led to us walking away the first time. Lucas nods immediately. No hesitation. No resistance. I know, he says, and I am not going anywhere this time. There is no dramatic emphasis in his voice, no attempt to make it sound like a promise that solves everything. Just a quiet commitment that feels more solid because of how simple it is. I study him for a second, searching for doubt, for uncertainty, But what I find instead is something steadier. Something that feels like a choice he has already made and is willing to keep making. And that matters more than anything else he could say. Good. I reply softly, and the word feels small compared to everything behind it. But it is enough. For now. We stand there for a moment longer, the silence no longer heavy, no longer uncertain, just open, like there is space for something new to exist without being forced into shape too quickly. And then I let out a quiet breath, the tension I have been holding finally easing just enough to make room for something else, something cautious but real. So what now? I ask, and this time the question is not about escaping or delaying. It is about moving forward. Lucas's gaze meets mine, steady and calm. And there is a hint of something there. Not urgency,